What's going on, Oasis? How's everybody doing?
It's amazing weather.
Yeah,
Back, spring has sprung.
yeah, it has. Yeah, yeah. I saw some of the trees are already starting to bloom. Of course, that's always got its pros and cons, man. Like when they bloom this early, man, I don't trust it.
And I think tomorrow night is 30 degrees.
Is it? Yeah. So we needed to. What is it? Like is it like 2 hours or something like that? It needs to if it dips below 30 for 2 hours or something like that. That's a hard freeze.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know what it is. All I know is we have a pear tree in our backyard that produces pears, except for these stupid last-minute freezes. And I don't trust it.
That will kill a pear tree.
It
or at
does.
least the production.
It does, man. It's a
Kill
pretty
it.
tree, but we want some pears out of the deal because, there's some folks that, well, we eat them. It's actually a pear tree that we can eat, and then we give it away for. Some people make jelly, and some people
Dude,
make.
It's
Yeah,
good.
it is
My
good.
dad actually has a pear tree.
Yeah?
We've made some jam from it. We haven't.
Yeah.
Trista has made some.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. They come and take a box of it, and we have to keep the birds off of it. But
Yeah.
whatever. So anyway, it's nice outside, so that's pretty great. Except I guess the wind's going to be picking up for the next day or two, but
Yep.
we'll be all right. Hope everybody is doing well on this Holy Week.
Yeah.
Man, we are screaming up to Easter, and it is such an amazing departure from last year. During this time last year, we were trying to figure out how to
How to do this.
how
and
to do this.
how to
Yeah, and
create spots.
yeah, it was weird last year because it was simultaneously really fun to figure this out, and then not fun because it's Easter. And everybody kind of had this low key, like, we're going to have to spend Easter at home. That's my sons are a great example of it. They've never spent a day in their lives not at church on Easter Sunday.
Oh yeah.
I had because I was a rotten kid, but they haven't, and I think that and probably Christy hasn't. So it's just kind of a clear departure from last year. So praise God for that. We get to all meet together and invite friends and everything that goes along with that. So that kind of brings me to this. I put it in the feed. There is a link that is there that is our Oasis digital, where you could go in there. You can download the image and put that on your Facebook or whatever social media and invite as many people as possible to church on Sunday. And then also Wednesday, we have a Passover. We have a Passover service.
Yeah, it's kind of like, man, this is the reality of, this is the reason, really, to kind of have friends.
Yeah.
To make an impact. I mean, even the scripture talks about, man, have friends that even, that they don't lead their life in such a way that is promising, but when their doom comes of like, man, this didn't work, my life plan didn't work, that you may come in and show like, man, this is my foundation.
Yeah.
And this is the week and the reason why we connect with people, and to bring them to Jesus, and it's not just for our own benefit of like, man, we have friends and we're not alone, and that's not to minimize that, but man, there's got to be a bigger reason of why you're not alone, something to express why.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think, oh man, I heard this over the weekend. I heard a speaker say this, talking about conversation, and how to be a good conversationalist and the reason to be a good conversationalist. And we bear the name of Jesus. We have Christ in our life. We have good news, and we operate in a lost and dying world. And so the story that we tell is God's story. So given that, we need to be intentional about that. We need to be intentional in our conversation. We start conversation because we don't want to just engage and have a conversation because we want to talk about ourselves. We want to engage in this conversation to give information across. We want you to know Jesus, right? It's interesting you say this. So coming my part of this today, something that I've been thinking about a lot over the last handful of weeks, and I have no real reason why it's hitting me, aside from just God moving, and it's just my brain. I'm thinking about it, but it's coming into this Holy Week, and I don't know. Have you ever watched the movie The Passion of the Christ?
Yep.
Okay. So I didn't fully understand. No, I understood like the cross, and I understand the awful things that happened. But man, when I watched that movie, I found myself, I'm not kidding you, adrenaline when they showed the scene of beating Jesus, flogging him, ripping that skin, right?
Yeah.
I found myself like adrenaline and starting to get angry. And it was crazy. I just totally did not expect that. In all the movie, that was the scene that really kind of hits me pretty hard, where I just, and do you know who that is? And even now, as I come into Easter, and this is just me personally in this week, and this hits on a different level, man. This is so visceral. This is, by the end of this week, an innocent man will be dead. This time next week, that innocent man will have risen and cheated death and beat death. And that's incredible. And all the things that kind of go along with that. But it also, on a personal level, this week brings, every year it brings something to the front with me, and it's God's sovereignty. And God's sovereignty is, it's maybe the definition would be the supreme power and authority. And that would be with a state or whatever, that they are self-governing, or they can govern themselves and another state. Certainly we apply that to God with He is supreme power and He is supreme authority. He can govern Himself and others. And coming into this week, with the fall of man and humanity choosing their own path through Adam and the fall, we have a point where God begins to bring His people back to Him from that point on, and this is in His sovereignty. It is His supreme power to bring everything in alignment for Him and through Him, and so this passage that I have today is really interesting, because I think part of God's sovereignty is He is above everything. He is above the world. He is above the politics. He is above everything. God doesn't get frustrated. God isn't at a loss for, I don't know what to do. God never finds Himself backed into a corner and pressured into making a decision. That's not God, right? God knows. God knows. God knows the dictators that rule in an evil way in whatever empire. God knows the president, and God knows the premier of this country, and God knows everything. And so He either changes it to coincide with His will and use it, or He deals with it, right? This week is obviously Holy Week, and so John chapter 19 is going to be something that really kind of hits me in a lot of ways. And this is Jesus that's being delivered to be crucified by religious people. Bradley talked about this yesterday, of kind of what we're capable of, religious, and we stand our ground even though we understand what there may be a consequence for it. Jesus understood why He was in this room. And so what I want to put in here is verse. Let's start at 10. So 19:10, John 19:10, and it says, "So Pilate said to him." So this is Jesus is already in the presence. "So Pilate said to him, 'You will not speak to me. Do you not know? You will not speak to me. Do you not know that I have the authority to release you and the authority to crucify you?' And Jesus responds. Before I say this response, the last time that I see something that this reminds me of was, you remember in the old beginning of the New Testament, where Jesus speaks and He's referred to as speaking with an authority. I don't think this probably has changed here, right? So, man, Jesus probably holds Himself in such a way to be like, man, I'm about to lay down some words, and they're not only words, but these are the words, also my words, you know? And so Jesus answered him, 'You would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has the greater sin.' And then verse 12, it says, from then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, 'If you release him, this man, you will not You are not a friend of Caesar. And I think it's interesting. I mean, Jesus lays down this. You have no authority unless it's been given to you from above. So he does some confidence here, right? And I find it funny that Pilate like immediately is like, I don't think Pilate, certainly he believed in the God of Israel, but he had to have been a spiritual man. It's just they're all spiritual then, right?
Yeah.
With the Roman gods. And Jesus lays down like, you're messing with something. And what does Pilate respond? I need you gone. Right? How this applies, I think, to God's sovereignty is God knew, and there was a plan that was laid out from a long time ago that was going to run its course, and it came from above.
Yeah.
We sit here today, you and I sit here, and those of us that are watching, we sit here today understanding that the salvation that we have in our lives, man, that is from God, that is from above, and it was set in motion a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
There should be an element of peace that every Christian, we all should have, especially this week, but especially throughout the course of our life, is understanding that God has our days mapped and he knows what's going on. He's using us. There is a plan, and it is God's plan, and it is good, and it is right. And if that's the case, there should be a little bit of peace in our lives of, it is what it is. I trust you, God, right? Jesus, and this is kind of my own little punch in there on myself, man, Jesus didn't die on a cross to save mankind so that we could gripe about stuff. He didn't. That was not the point. God brought us to the cross, through Jesus, that we would glorify him and tell everybody the story that we have. And it's God's story of redemption. So that's kind of my bit. And of course, this week hits me a little bit harder. I love Easter. And I love that you kind of got to deal with some stuff on Easter.
You do.
You can't Santa Claus this one out. You know?
Just take the gift and run. No,
Yeah, you can't. There is no Black Friday. There's a Black Saturday. There's a dead, there's a grave somewhere Saturday. But Sunday's coming.
Yeah.
I love that. So
that story continues, and really kind of building into like the precursor, Luke 19. We just been walking through. That's the last couple of moments before Jesus walks into what is essentially the trial of his life, and this is Jesus' little moment with Israel, this seeing Jerusalem and looking upon and having a response, an emotional response. In verse 41, it says, "And when he drew near and saw the city, he wept over it, saying, would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace. But now they are hidden from your eyes. And for the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you and surround you and hem you in on every side and tear you down to the ground, and you and your children within you. And they will not leave one stone upon another in you, because you did not know the time of your visitation." And Jesus' response on this, looking upon the city, and that word city, it's not just he looked at the citizens, he looked at the city. And that word has a meaning of the treasure of a city, and kind of looking around and seeing something that's not there, but the meaning of it is, it's what pours out. And so he sees this underlining foundation in which the people are living and what they are trusting in, and he says he weeps over it. And I think for us, like, man, we don't have that strength, at least not all the time, to see something and understand what's behind that something. And we see actions and we're just like, there's a selfish act. Like every act is a selfish act, or every act is a selfish act, even to the point of if you're buying something to give to someone, it's almost like, and maybe I've struggled with this recently, of like, man, to be a servant, but to be a servant not wanting or expecting something on the other end.
Yeah, okay. The accolades or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jesus sees that, and we don't have that capability all the time. We don't have that level and that strength of discernment to see something and see past it. and to know what we need to do, because he even says that you don't understand what needs to be done for peace to happen. And that's what Jesus sees. He sees what needs to happen in order for the peace to be available. And what they were waiting on was, no, the peace is just going to come immediately. What we looked at last week is the last parable of the minas. It says that, man, the people, the disciple, everyone around said they thought that the kingdom was going to come immediately. And that wasn't true at all. And still isn't. Because man, there's this process of, man, when Christ comes, it says that that's not necessarily his kingdom coming. He comes with the sword. He comes to make things right. And then after that, man, the kingdom is set up. But inside this reality of, man, we need to learn to look at our neighbors, our peers, people around us, and not see and respond to their actions, but see and understand, man, what needs to happen for peace to settle in their heart. And if we can see people from that light, I think we're going to be a little bit more compassionate. We're going to be a little bit more patient. And we're going to be a little bit more willing to endure. As Paul told Timothy, he was like, man, I endure for the sake of the elect. And the reality is, we don't know who the elect all are. We know it's the church and those who believe, but we don't know who hasn't believed and who will believe.
God is still electing.
As there still is breath in our lungs, there's still an opportunity for us to receive Christ and become elect, become saved, become his children. And so inside this moment of him turning and weeping, and we see him just not really understanding, because, man, the next thing about that is, I say that because the people making their actions and not having an overflow of love for him, the next moment is him cleansing the temple for the second time. Some people read those passages and think that they're the same instance. They're not. One was at the beginning of his ministry, and the other one is at the close of his ministry. And he cleanses the temple, and in each of those moments, he says that my house will be a house of prayer. And so to that, the lashing of myself is, what are my prayers about? And I pray with my kids each night before they go to bed, and I'm really trying to stay inclined of like, okay, how can I show them, be consistent, not just praying and making that element consistent, but showing them how to pray. Because when they pray, it's like, it's great. I mean, they're 3 and 5, so it's like, Kamal will say, he's like, man, I want to pray for God. I want to pray for the Israelites, because he just wants to read stories about the Israelites, which is awesome. I'm like, yeah, let's keep doing that. But I'm like, I mean, we can pray about it for Israelites, but it's like, that chapter is closed. But in that reality, like, man, if I'm being as patient and had the faith of a child of like, no, there still are Israelites today. Israel is still a nation. It still is God's chosen people. Yeah, but let's pray for the Israelites. But how can I take that element and go, okay, this is a house of prayer. God's house is a house of prayer. How can I focus my prayer? How can I make my faith come out by seeing God's compassion that he had on us and using that and viewing others with that same compassion? And so that's, this week is for us, if anything, it's, man, make God's house, make the house that he dwells in, that his spirit dwells in, a house of prayer, of us praying for those who need peace, not just grateful that I have the peace. And letting that story continue to build and grow, and seeing how God moves, because that's where we start to see God crack some light in and cleanse out some souls.
That's such a good word, man. I just want to encourage everyone to, just praying for those that are in your life that you can share the good news, the gospel with, and that story that's inside of us. We love you guys. It's good to see you as always on this Monday, and
hope to see you Wednesday.
Wednesday, and then hope to see you and your neighbors Sunday.
Yeah, and actually there's a Friday night event. 6:30.
I
think.
Yes.
We will get that. We'll get the information out. But there's a movie that's going to be up here at the church, more than likely in the fellowship hall. But its focus is the life of Jesus. And what better element to build up our knowledge on truly just the life of Jesus on Easter weekend, starting the weekend off with that. So we'll get those details out. Keep in touch with our social media. We'll get that post out later today on the times of that. But man, it's gonna be a great week, and so we hope you're a part of the Wednesday, the Friday, and especially the Sunday celebration of us bringing our friends along with us about the story of Jesus.
Yeah, that's it. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.